This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, in today's class, we will focus on batch technique in OData services, how to execute multiple methods or multiple operations in a single request. So that we are going to discuss in today's session. The main purpose of batch technique is to execute multiple methods or multiple operations in a single request. In order to execute multiple methods or multiple operations in a single request, in that situation, we can use batch technique, which we are going to discuss today. So I'll try to demonstrate on two methods, get entity and get entity set, how they will behave with batch technique. We will try to discuss on that. So what are the preconditions if you want to execute a service with batch technique? Preconditions to execute OData service with batch technique. Let me write that here. So according to today's service, what we'll try to do is we'll try to make sure that get entity method is executed, is implemented with some select statement. We have already done this, but these are the preconditions to execute the service according to today's example. Make sure that get entity method is implemented with select query. And make sure that get entity set method of user set entity set is implemented with some select query. Get entity set method of user set entity set, that should be implemented with select query. We have already done this. And make sure that get entity set method of flight set entity set method is implemented with select query, or you can use a BAP in this case. Anyhow, we have already done this. You can use BAP with mapping technique and make sure that this method is implemented and mapped to data source. So this also we have done it. So make sure that get entity set method of user set, get entity set method of flight set, make sure that these two methods are implemented, and these two methods belongs to user set entity set and another method is flight set entity set. Similarly, get entity method of user set entity set method is implemented. Now, we have already implemented these three methods in our previous sessions. We have already done it. So you need not do it again and again. But these are the preconditions in order to execute OData service with today's batch technique. And not only that, make sure that change set begin method is redefined and with no code in it. What you need to do, change set begin is one of the method in our OData services. That method should be redefined but with no code in it. You need not write any code in that, just you need to redefine that. If you want to execute your service with batch technique, this method has to be just redefined. And make sure that change set end. This is also another method in our OData service that also should be redefined with no code in it. Change set begin should be redefined. Change set end should be redefined under DPC extension class. Let me write that here, DPC extension class. So, first 3 lines we have already implemented. Let us focus on the next 2 lines here. So let me take up one OData service in SCGW. Okay, let me take up this 7 AM CRUD OData project. In that you can see, if you closely observe this, there is user, that is entity type. You're already aware of that. And there is user set. Similarly, there is flight. That's an entity type. And it is associated with flight set as an entity set. So all these things we have done it earlier. And please remember, on flight set you can see on get entity set method, we have consumed a BAPI with mapping technique. On get entity set method, we consumed a BAPI with mapping technique inside OData service. So when you do this mapping, I can say get entity set method of flight set is implemented with a select query. This will be done automatically when you implement mapping. And these 2 methods must be implemented explicitly on user set. So that also we have done it. Just let me open it here. Go to runtime artifacts, DPC extension class. And you can see here, we have implemented something like get entity method on user set entity set and get entity set method of user set entity set. So these 2 methods are also implemented. Now what you need to do? You need to make sure that change set begin is redefined and change set end is redefined, but you need not write any code in that. So you can just scroll up and here you can see there are several methods, and here there is one method like change set begin and change set end. So just click on change, place cursor here, change set begin and redefine. But now it is redefined. So what you do is Just give some space here, give some space and just activate. Don't write any code. Similarly, go back. Place cursor under change set end. Redefine. Now just provide some space here. Then try to activate. You need not write any code here. So you can go back. So if you want to execute a service with batch technique, make sure that these two methods are redefined. Under DPC extension class, what you need to do is these two methods, change set begin, change set end, must be redefined. These two methods must be redefined inside DPC extension class. But you need not write any code inside that. These methods, whenever you redefine, it will allow you to execute your service with batch technique. Let me write a simple note. Change set begin and change set end these two methods will allow developer to execute OData service with batch technique. So when you redefine these two methods will allow developer to execute OData service with batch technique. Hello students, can you hear me? Okay. So here, what's the next step? Let me save this screenshot. Now what you need to do is open gateway client and test the service. So what you need to do is you can go back after activating and now you can go to service maintenance, open gateway client, and here you can see, so whenever you make any changes, it is better to clean up cache on both systems. When you make some changes, it's better to go for metadata, clean up cache on both systems and continue. Now here what you need to do is you need to use something like $batch after your OData service name. After your OData service name, you have to use $batch. And you need to select post option to execute $batch. You need to use post option in gateway client. And not only that, you need to add one header here. Under HTTP request, you need to add one header with content type, and the content type must be something like this. So here, content type can be something like multi-part slash mixed, semicolon, give some space, and provide boundary equal to batch. Multi-part slash mixed, semicolon, and give some space here, be careful, and boundary equal to batch. So this should be your content type header with the value. Then continue. Now what you need to do is, you need to provide something like which methods you want to execute. So that you have to supply here under HTTP request. For example, I want to execute get entity method of user set, and I want to fetch something like 1001 related record. Similarly, I want to execute same method again with, for example, 1002. I want to execute get entity method by passing this 1001. And in the same request, I want to execute get entity method by passing 1002 as input here. So I want to execute the same method twice with different inputs. We are trying to execute the same method twice with two different inputs. And that is possible to execute two methods in the same request by using a batch technique. But I'll give the complete syntax here. Let me take the syntax from our notes. So here this is a syntax to be used. Let me explain that. So go to HTTP request and try to use this syntax. Here you can see in this case, so if you closely observe what we are trying to do, we are trying to make use of get option here on entity set, and we are passing some input. Similarly, we are trying to use get option again on the same entity set, and we are passing some input here. But technically, these two methods, in this case, get entity method will be executed. Here also get entity method will be executed second time within this batch process. So this is batch begin and this is batch end. So first let me execute, then I'll give that. So here gateway client. Now you need to select post option and in URL use /$batch, then execute the service. So if everything goes fine, now you will get the output of two methods which are executed one after the other. So you can see we are able to get the first record 1001 Vijay. So this is because of executing get entity method with input 1001. In the same request, we are able to get the response For 1002 here, Venkat, and you can see that's a record which we got by executing get entity method of user set with input 1002. So in this case, we are able to get two records just because of executing get entity method twice in a single request. We are able to get the output in a single response here. So what is happening? Let us understand that. Let me highlight that in this screenshot. So what we are trying to do? We are trying to use $batch in the service URL and select post option and content type. Try to add this parameter, or I can say add this HTTP header with boundary equal to batch. And then in your HTTP request, you need to use this as a begin batch and this as end batch. Within that, you can execute any number of methods, any number of times. So here, this should be the syntax, be careful. And in this syntax, we are trying to use get user set with 1001, get user set with input 1002. So what happens in this situation is, technically, in first case, get entity method is executed with input 1001. In second case, same get entity method is executed again with input 1002. But the main point here is these two methods are executed within a single request. Two methods are executed with single request here. Just notice that they're executed in a single request because of batch technique. You can execute two different methods, or you can execute the same method twice or thrice, but we are trying to execute with a single request. That is because of batch technique here. So we are able to get the output of 1001 and we are able to get the output of 1002 in the response section. So you need to remember this. Be careful. It's not so easy while executing. Follow the conditions and use the proper syntax. That's the reason why I'm explaining again and again. So this is how you can execute get entity method twice or multiple times with batch technique. Now, okay, let me copy that syntax for you in the node file. So here on header section, content type must be this. Open gateway client, test the service, but here under HTTP request, click on plus symbol and provide something like content type in this manner. Multipart slash mixed semicolon boundary equal to batch. So that should be available. And then after that, select post option. Whenever you execute using batch technique, you need to select post option in gateway client. Whenever you execute a service with batch technique, select post option and use service URL as below. The service URL looks like this. In service URL, after OData service name, we are using $badge. Please notice that. /$badge. And under HTTP request section, use below syntax and execute the service. So this is what we have done. Batch begin, batch end, and inside that we are executing getEntity method twice with two different inputs, so that you will get the output of first input, you will get the output based on the second input. Two methods we are able to retrieve because getEntity method is executed twice. So this is a syntax. Be careful. Even I am executing very carefully just because syntax matters. Otherwise, you'll get a problem. You'll get an error. Now, what we'll try to do is, we'll try to deal with getEntity sets. So what we can do here is, instead of executing getEntity method, I want to execute getEntity set method of user set, getEntity set method of flight set. Then you can see here, let me take that syntax. This is the syntax I'm trying to use. Everything is same, but here we are trying to use two different entity sets. So in this case, what we are trying to do, we are trying to use get option twice, and first is on user set and the second is on flight set. So in first case, it will execute getEntity set method of user set. You'll get the data of that. In second case, it will execute getEntity set method of flight set, and you'll get the data of that. So we are executing two methods in a single request so that you will get the output of both entity sets in the response section by using batch technique. So let me execute here by selecting post option with $badge again. $badge post option execute. Now you can see, if you closely observe, we are able to get the output. You can see 1001 user ID, 1002 user ID record, 1003 user ID related record, 1004 user ID record. So that means we are able to get all records of our first entity set, that is user set. You can see that. Because here getEntity set method is executed, by default you are getting all records of that entity set. But if you scroll down, you can see we are also getting Japan Airlines on flight set. You can see here we're getting Lufthansa Airways of flight set. You can see here Singapore Airlines of flight set. Not only that, we are able to get user ID 1001 record on user set. You can see Venkat 1002 on user set. So Ram Prasad 1003 on user set. So we are getting the records based on user set and we are getting the records based on flight set. So the point here is very simple. In this case, what happens is be careful with the syntax. You have to use $batch in the URL. And you have to select post option for executing service with batch technique. And under HTTP request header, content type value must be multipart / mixed semicolon boundary equal to batch. And in your HTTP request body section, so this should be the syntax. So in this case, what is happening is here and here. That is what you need to observe. Here, get entity set method. Here, get entity set method of user set is executed. So we are getting the records of user set. Not only that, in second case, get entity set method of flight set. So you are also getting the records of flight set because get entity set method of flight set is also executed here. So these two things are executed in a single request. So if you closely observe, these two methods are executed in a single request here using batch technique. So to be more specific, in single request, two methods are executed because of batch technique. And you can also observe the output. You'll get the output of both the methods. So let me save this. So here we are executing get entity set methods multiple times with batch technique. So that is how you need to execute your services with batch technique. Okay, for our continuity, let me copy that. This is scenario 1. And this is scenario 2. So in scenario 2, let me give that syntax. The same syntax I've used. Be careful with the syntax. If there is any problem with any space or something like that, then you'll be in trouble. Be careful. Okay, so that is how you can execute your OData service with batch technique. Now say for example, forget about that topic now. Say for example, I want to download data or records into an Excel sheet. I want to download data or records into an Excel sheet. Then what is the approach you need to follow? Let us understand that. That is also a very simple technique. So you can see in our OData service, we have two entity sets, flight set and user set. When you execute get entity set with flight set, you'll get the records of that flight set. When you execute with user set, get entity set method will get the records of user set. But what I want to do is, say for example, I want to send these records and I want to download these records into an Excel sheet via OData service. So in that scenario, if you want to download the records directly, what you need to do, just go to service maintenance, open gateway client, just open gateway client, and execute the service. Now here you can say, select entity set of your choice, which data you want to send it to Excel sheet. Which data you want to send it to Excel sheet. Select that entity set here. For example, user set. I want to send all the records of this user set to an Excel sheet. After providing entity set, use URI option. And here you can use $format equal to Excel SX. You have to use $format equal to Excel SX. So your data will be downloaded to Excel sheet in this case. Now you can execute the service. So if everything goes fine, now you can see what it is saying. So we are getting 200, that's a success status code. We are getting 200 as a success status code. If you want, you can open response in browser to display data in the right format. What it is saying, it is giving some hint. Open response in browser to display data in right format. So what is our format? The format should be in the form of Excel sheet, Excel SX. So what you can do, select response in browser and click on allow. Click on allow. Now you can see the entire data is downloaded into an Excel sheet here. We have around 121 records. All those 121 records, they're downloaded to an Excel sheet with format equal to Excel SX. Now say for example, I want to get the data and I want to download it into something like an Excel sheet from flight set. So in that case, what you can do, select your entity set. If you want, you can select flight set here. I want to download the data of flight set into an Excel sheet. So use format, $format equal to Excel SX. And now execute the service. Now you can see we are getting status code 200, and you can also open the response in browser with the right format. So let me select response in browser, click on allow. Now you can see we are able to get American Airlines, Go Air Airlines, Delta Airlines. So you're getting all records here, Japan Airlines, Singapore Airlines. So the entire data is downloaded into an Excel sheet here. So that's a simple process you have to follow via OData service. So let me take this screenshot, very simple but very important. So use get option, execute the service. And here After service name, provide your entity set. Then use dollar format equal to Excel SX. From which entity set you want to get the data and what should be the output format, so that you can decide. Entity set name, and here you need to use format, something like question mark dollar format equal to Excel SX. It's a parameter, or I can say URI option that you need to supply. Technically, this is URI option. And if you want to see the response or the output, then first check whether status code is 200 or not. If it is 200, then you will get something like response in browser, and you can open the data in the right format by selecting this option. Response in browser, then you will be able to get data in Excel sheet. So this is the approach to be followed. Now, but how to consume this service and how this will happen in the front end? How the front end developer or the front end user will download the data into an Excel sheet? So we did not write any special code to do this in OData service. Please remember, we did not write any special code in OData service to send our data to Excel sheet. Already SAP has predefined one format equal to Excel SX. So with that format itself, we are able to send our data to Excel sheet. So let me copy that syntax. Entity set and add URI option. Execute the service. Open response in browser. Then you'll get the data to Excel sheet. So to do this, we did not write any special code. Please notice that. So let me copy this. Okay, here, make sure that get entity set method of user set is implemented, and make sure that get entity set method of flight set is implemented. Then what you need to do, open gateway client. Open gateway client. Select entity set of your choice. For example, user set, and select add URI option. Add URI option, that is dollar format equal to Excel SX. Select get option. Of course, here you need to select get option and then execute the service with below URL syntax. This is the approach you need to use. And check the output, or I can say response in browser externally. To view the data or to view the downloaded data in Excel format. To to view the downloaded data in Excel sheet format, you can just check the output or response in browser section. Similarly, if you want, you can also try this. You can repeat this on user set, that is flight set. If you want to download the data of flight set, here the entity set must be flight set. So that's it. Now, let me just open the front-end screen also, how exactly this service will allow you to download data in the front-end perspective. So you can see, just let me open that. Front-end screen. So you can see, in our case, in the front end, just I'm trying to run the end-to-end output for download option. So we are going to develop the screen. We are going to develop the screens like this. And here you can see, we are getting the data to list. We are getting data to table. You can see that. Whatever data you find it in the back end, the same data we are able to retrieve to this table in the front end view screen. Now what I have done is I've just provided some button here, something like download data to Excel. We have just created one additional button just above the table. So when user click on download data to Excel sheet, now you can see the data is downloaded to Excel sheet and you can see that here. So user set data that is downloaded to Excel sheet from the front end perspective by our data service, the same data. So in the front end, what we do is we generally create one simple button just above the table. This table is getting data from user set. So just above the table, create button and user can click on this and it will try to download that file. And you will be able to get the data in Excel sheet. You can see that. Very simple. So, but in order to download data to Excel sheet, let me just highlight this particular action. So in one of the controller, I've implemented this. We are going to do all these things, but just let me highlight download option at the moment. Okay, you can see in the front end, when user click on download button, in the front end UI5 or it can be Fiori, but when user click on download button, this event handler can be executed and mainly we are passing our entity set as it is, same like what we used to do in gateway client and with question mark dollar format equal to Excel SX. So whatever we used to do it in gateway client, the same URL we are trying to supply in the front end so that you will get the data in Excel sheet here. So this is how the service URL is used. Service path, entity set, and this URI option here. These three things in the front end you need to supply. This is service path. This is from which entity set you want to download the data into Excel sheet. And this is the URI option for Excel sheet. So this is one thing that you need to remember. This is in front-end app via OData service. This is happening. Okay, let me close this. So let me write a simple note. When we develop front-end application, and it can be UI5 or it can be Fiori. As an example, I just opened Fiori application, but the same thing, same approach is followed in UI5 application. So when we develop front-end app UI5 or Fiori for downloading data or records to Excel sheet, we can create a button with a download option just above table screen element. Just above table screen element, and pass the same service URL as below. The same thing. Just as a hint, I have highlighted here, but practically we are going to do it in the front end. How to create a button, how to implement event handler, that entire thing you will understand when I develop front end application. But as of now, this is just to give some hint so that you don't forget. I've shown it with this approach. Okay, I'll stop here.